everyone. Welcome to the 5-Beer Plan. I'm Brian, and this is the ongoing saga of an everyman's ale trail. In this episode, I roll out the next homebrew project, head downriver to a French-inspired stop, and review a fresh take on an IPA variant. But before we get this party started, here is this episode's burning question. What is your favorite Cascadian Black IPA? I looked at my Untapped history, and my favorite one is called Raven from Treehouse Brewing in Charlton, Massachusetts, that I got from my beer bro Mark. This one was clearly a dark pour. It had a roasty nose with an almost smoky lean. Chocolate on the front turned into some great citrus flavor on the palate, with a hint of pine and a smooth, bitter finish. In this segment of Homebrew Hijinks, where I share my personal homebrew experience, it's time to share the next idea for my homebrew. But before I do, I need to correct one thing from the last episode. You see, I realized just as I was finishing last episode's beer review and editing, I had promised to review my prize-winning beer, the St. Joe Stout. Unfortunately, due to the fact that a quarter of my yield had gone to the fair for judging, I had fewer bottles to enjoy and thus gave the last one away without thinking months ago. So anyway, just to bring the previous homebrew project full circle, here is my abbreviated review. From the brewer, pouring a murky brown, this stout was inspired by the spring rains that roil up the east branch of the St. Joseph River. The essence of dark chocolate swirls with every sip and leaves with a hint of booze on the finish. My Untapped check-in noted the following. Dark brown pour with a chocolatey aroma on the nose. Light to medium-bodied mouthfeel. Bitter chocolate on the palate, but smooth with a boozy burn on the finish. I gave this beer a high 3.5 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, FBP Homebrew Project, and congratulations on your first win. Alright, back to it. With the holidays fast approaching, it seemed like a great time to brew up a holiday-inspired beer. As I was thinking about days of old, I was taken back to the good old-fashioned family feasts. I wanted something kind of light that might go well with the various flavors and aromas of the meal. This idea reminded me of the increasing diversity of the craft beer scene and what it brings to the industry. I personally think that the different backgrounds and traditions represented are what keep the craft beer scene fresh and inviting. I have had some great beers over the years, inspired by such things as Mom's sweet potato pie, Grandma's oatmeal cookie with a hint of honey, or even Dad's rum punch. Exactly what this idea brings to the table, so to speak. From past experience, both drinking and brewing, a cream ale base seemed like the best palette on which to paint a picture of nostalgia. Fermenting with a clean Cali ale yeast will also let the desired flavors shine through. My mind went immediately to the cranberry and orange relish, which is a great dish to go with a Thanksgiving meal. The bitterness of the cranberry and the brightness of the citrus really make for a great flavor combination that balances out the savory flavors of turkey and dressing. I never used to appreciate it until I was a little bit older, but it really elevates the meal. So how to accomplish this, you might ask? Well, I needed a relish that I could condition the beer on in secondary fermentation. I started digging around for such a recipe in our family cookbooks that would combine these flavors to no avail. We often just cut open a can of cranberry jelly and put slices on a plate, and then always had some sort of a jello salad, often made with orange jello and mandarin oranges. I knew in my mind's eye that these were the kind of flavors that I wanted to represent. Now, to find that recipe and try it out on my family at Thanksgiving. Enter the Holiday Cream Ale. Next episode, it's time to kick off the project. Now, it's time for Barstool Banter. This episode, I head to the Island View neighborhood of Detroit to chat with co-owner and head brewer of Brewery Faison, Paul Saga. For those that are not aware, Detroit started out with French settlers from Montreal and Quebec founding Fort Pontchartrain de Detroit as a fur trading post on the north side of the Detroit River. Inspired by Detroit's deep French roots, Paul brings substance and style through his beer. We talk about their founding, choice of location, and how the pandemic shaped their evolution. Welcome to Barstool Banter. I'm sitting down with Paul Saga from Brewery Faison in Detroit, Michigan. Paul, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me on the podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Can you please tell me what your role is there at the brewery?
Almost everything. We're a very small team. Me and my wife are the owners, the sole owners. I do all the brewing, all the packaging, all the cellaring. Up until about a year ago, I was doing all the sales, all the deliveries. So a lot of the back of the house kind of work.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty amazing when you own a brewery, how much work there is to do behind the scenes, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a lot. Never a dull moment. Always busy.
How many years has Brewery Faison been open?
We're turning 6 in October.
Oh, okay. Congrats.
Yeah,
That's great. So the name of the brewery, I have an idea kind of maybe where the name is coming from, but can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it has to do with kind of the unofficial mascot of Detroit being a pheasant. If you've ever been to Detroit or spent any time in Detroit, or especially kind of in the neighborhoods, you'll notice that there are pheasants all over the place. You'll hear them mostly, and occasionally you'll see one. And we were always seeing them in the neighborhood. When we had the building and we're kind of thinking of what we might want to call it, we kept seeing pheasants. They were actually kind of roosting on the roof, and whenever we'd pull up, they'd fly across the street to go back to the woods. And so we thought, like, oh, maybe like wonder what it's how do you say pheasant in French? And it, was faison. And we thought, like, oh, that's pretty cool. So that's kind of how it bore out. I mean, it's also a really fun kind of litmus test for, if you tell someone that we're called Brewery Faison or it means pheasant, and they're like, oh yeah, because you're in Detroit. It's kind of like you can tell that they're a Detroiter,
Okay.
Yeah.
Lived in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. To be honest, I never knew that about Detroit, that there are a lot of pheasants there.
Yeah, they like the vacant land that's kind of become overgrown, the tall grass. There's plenty of that in Detroit.
Yeah, sure. And of course, your logo leans into that as well.
Yeah, so it's just an outline of the ringneck pheasant is the logo.
Simple and effective. We are birders in our household. And so,
Yeah.
Pheasant is something we see periodically out in the field as well.
Yeah, cool.
The Metro Detroit area has a pretty good selection of breweries. Why did you end up choosing the Island View neighborhood of Detroit for the brewery?
Yeah, so we always wanted it to be in Detroit. As we were planning the brewery, that was kind of like a adamant. It had to be in Detroit. We looked all over the city. We considered beer making and brewing to be, an industrial manufacturing process. So we weren't concerned about being kind of off of a main drag. We wanted it to be production focused. So we looked for warehouse spaces with room, high ceilings, concrete floors, ample utilities, things that you would have to kind of shoehorn in if you're working on like a smaller storefront somewhere or in like a more historic kind of building. So that's how we ended up in Island View. It was somewhat under the radar. Like we had been looking in Corktown, and that quickly became out of our price range. We looked at Midtown right around when like the Q line got announced, and then a little bit up in Milwaukee Junction. And again, like as soon as that project got announced, it was way out of our price range. So Island View, through all that, kind of maintained, sort of stayed under the radar, stayed affordable. So we were able to actually buy the building back in 2015. And then it took us about 4 years from there to get it turned into a brewery. But it was basically a lot of things. It was an area of the city that we could afford. It had all the industrial, zoned industrial. The building had all the overhead that we needed, and we weren't in any rush. So that's how we ended up in Island View, and we love it.
Yeah, nice. Well, the other thing I really liked about the area, is that you're not that far away from the Detroit River. So, I mean, within like 5 minutes, you can drive down to the Riverwalk and walk around in the green areas there, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. We're surrounded by a lot of things that people are familiar with. Like, you'll say West Village or Indian Village or Lafayette Park or Belle Isle. But Island View is just sort of like this forgotten like middle of the donut because like it's just industrial. So, there's not a lot of people live there. And then there's not really a lot of other businesses besides people who do like powder coating and more like industrial things that they're just there from 9 to 5 and then they go home.
So Island View then is named after the ability to view Belle Isle. Is that what it is then?
Yep, it's that
Okay.
simple. Just yep, it's the when you're standing in Island View and you look across the river, you're right there. It's Belle Isle. So yep.
Yeah, nice. Really like the area, to be honest with you. It was really nice. So, what makes Brewery Faison unique to the craft industry?
That's a hard one. With what are we at, like 9,000 breweries now? So it's hard to
Yeah.
say anything you do is like truly unique. But we try to like do well. We try to focus on the beer, on the branding, on traditional styles, keeping it simple, making it an experience for people coming to the tap room, standing by our product, I guess. And I don't think any of those things are very unique, but I think we do them well. And I guess I'm proud of how we do them.
Yeah, stylistically, when I was there, it almost seemed like you have a little bit more of a Belgian leaning to your styles. Was that intentional?
Yeah, to begin with, it was, we fell in love with Belgian beers and we wanted to focus on them. But kind of as time progressed, it's not as much Belgian beers. There's still a handful on our menu, but it's actually more lagers now, and then a variety of American styles. So,
Yeah,
but yeah.
yeah. Okay. As luck would have it, I actually pulled out a beer from someplace called Singing River Brewing Company that's in Florence, Alabama. It's an IPA, but it's Belgian style, so it's 12%. So that's what I'm going to sip on while we talk. So
Okay, cool.
when I visited the brewery earlier this summer, of course, I didn't know what to expect. I had not really done any kind of research or anything. It was just a place that I knew I needed to go because I'd heard the name in circles that I walk in. It's very simple and it almost has kind of a Euro vibe to it. Again, was that kind of intentional?
Yes, intentional. I guess it's funny because it is European vibe, like you said. As we were planning, kind of figuring out like, all right, how do we want to do the brewery? We actually did a road trip along the California One highway, stopped at several dozen breweries out on the West Coast, and kind of, at each one thought about like what we liked and what we didn't like. And generally, like at least out there, it was very popular that breweries were more like you turn into like an industrial park, every business would be closed, it'd be dark, and then in the back corner there'd be like all these lights on and all these cars and you'd be like, what is going on? So we really like that kind of vibe, kind of going back to like us focusing on it being a production facility rather than a restaurant, but still having a tap room and a community space. So that's kind of what we encountered out there and what we liked. So that was the focus that we took on, I guess.
Okay. I like the spacing and the size of it too, and it's very light and welcoming. I really like that part of it too.
Yeah.
Someplace like you said, you walk into and it's got this kind of dark industrial vibe, and I mean, there's a place for that kind of thing. But again, I appreciate the fact that yours was kind of wide open and it just seemed a little bit more friendly and inviting from that standpoint.
Yeah, thanks. Yep, that
Yeah.
was the vibe we were kind of go for.
So, how large of a space do you have then there at the tap room?
Well, the whole building is 9,000 square feet, but right now we only use like 6,000 of it. The tap room part is about a couple thousand, and then the rest of that is production area. So it's a 120 seat capacity tap room. I think there's only around 80 seats. No kitchen. We try to have food trucks and pop ups and things, or you can bring your own food.
Do you have any outdoor seating there?
Yeah, we have a side patio, and then kind of one of the nice things that came out of the pandemic, the city sort of relaxed having seating out in like public spaces. So like the front of our building is technically easement for the road, but we're allowed to have seating out front as well now too.
Yeah, I think when I was coming through last time, I think there was some construction going on your road. Is that all finished up now?
Yeah, it just finished. That was all summer. Yeah.
So with something like that, again, so for those that don't know, I mean, you're kind of off the beaten path. You're out of the way a little bit. Did that affect your business at all, having the road on construction?
Yes, it did.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of hoped it wouldn't because like we are kind of already a destination. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like if you've already decided to come to our brewery and you see that there's construction, you might as well still make it. But it did. It did affect us.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So just thinking about it, so 6 years, you mentioned pandemic. So really you started up the October before the pandemic. So you had just a little bit of time to kind of prepare
Yeah.
yourself for what nobody knew was coming. So did you have the ability then to can there at the facility from the start?
Yeah. Not from the start. So
Okay.
that,
Okay.
that was something we moved to pivoted to, so to speak. We started canning, we started selling wholesale, built our kind of wholesale accounts through the pandemic, all through the shutdown, because grocery stores still actually did pretty well and were a good outlet to sell the beer to. And then when everything reopened, we kind of established all those accounts and it was like, this is like going pretty well. Kind of this whole arm of the business that we didn't, it was maybe like 5, 10 year plan that got pushed to year one essentially. But like we were making a go of it and we were growing it and we still are growing it. And so we've kept going. We originally had just like a single manual hand seamer. We've now upgraded to we have a 3 head automated counter pressure filling machine, automatic labeler and all that stuff. So we have a delivery van now. So it's, slowly becoming a real brewery, I guess.
Growing up.
Yeah.
I looked at your website and you have a pretty decent distribution there, like in the Detroit area. So it looked
Yeah.
like maybe 25 or 30 places that carry your beer. Either it looked like almost in restaurants and bars and such there.
Yep. Yeah. So right now we're a little over 100 accounts.
Wow.
That's Michigan total, because our furthest right now is Grand Rapids, and we have one in Bay City, and then a lot in like East Lansing, Ann Arbor. But then, yeah, the bulk of them are still Metro Detroit. So a lot of them, because that was our focus through the pandemic, was grocery stores, bodegas, kind of places. So, but in recent couple of years, we have been focusing more on restaurants and bars and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned the canning. I did buy several cans when I was there at the tap room, and I like your labels too. Again, it's very recognizable, very simple. You've got that pheasant head logo and just the white cans with just the nice. I mean, it's just a very. It's very easy on the eyes. It's not like in your face or ostentatious. It's just like this is Brewery Faison. This is what our beer is. It's just like simple. It's delicious. It's just gonna meet your needs.
Yeah, that's what we wanted.
Do you design those yourself?
My wife does. Yeah, she does all
Okay.
the graphic design.
Nice. That's a great job. So, beer is always the thing that draws me into a brewery, but of course, in this current market where there's a lot of uncertainty, you've got to have other events and things to kind of bring people into the doors because ultimately, as we know, bottoms in the seat means that you're going to be selling beer, which means you're going to be making the maximum amount of, profit for yourself. So, what kind of events and activities do you have there at the brewery?
Yeah, so we have like weekly events. So we do trivia on Thursday. We've been having live music every Friday. We do a lot of craft fairs, craft events where people like make pottery and things like that. We try to have food trucks on the weekend and just all sorts of like community focused events.
Do you find it difficult to get food trucks where you're located?
Yeah, and it's not just us. This is, talking to other breweries. It's kind of how it is. It's difficult. They have, things that they need. They're always kind of on the hunt for the best location. It's like herding cats, I guess.
Well, I mean, their business, just like yours, is to make money ultimately. And if you're going to park for several hours someplace, you want to make sure that you are trying to maximize that. But like you said, I mean, that is something that I've heard from other breweries as well that have asked, the same question, and that's the general consensus as well. Either they don't come to my area because I'm a few minutes outside of their range they like to go to, or we've never had a food truck here and they don't want to come. I mean, it's just there's kind of a mixture of reasoning why. But again, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Do you ever plan to have food there at the brewery?
No, it wasn't on our plan. We're very lean. We considered having a commercial kitchen, but just the cost of just building it out and then the overhead of running one, we didn't want to do it. It wasn't really in our blood, not something we wanted to focus on. Like I said, it's always been about the production of beer. Everything that we did focused on in the build out was how to make the space a manufacturing effort for beer. So that's kind of how we planned it.
Last call.
It's nearly time to wrap things up, but first, one more for the road. This episode, I'm drinking BPM from Encore Brewing in Swanton, Ohio. From the brewer, introducing BPM, a fresh hop black IPA that harmonizes bold flavors with a smooth finish. With an ABV of 7% and an IBU of 69, this brew features rich roasted malts balanced by vibrant local hops from Pemberville and Monclova, complemented by grains sourced from Bascom. Each sip showcases a unique blend of earthy, piney notes and a hint of sweetness, making it a perfect choice for hop enthusiasts. Celebrate Ohio's local craftsmanship with every refreshing pour. Without further delay, so this is a 7% ABV Black Cascadian Dark IPA. I can't say enough about head brewer and co-owner Keith Baker. He is a very gifted brewer. When Encore came on the scene back in 2022, I knew that something special was ahead for Northwest Ohio. We've been talking about it, so I hope to get him on the podcast very soon. Come on, Keith. So I poured this beer out into a Weizen glass that was from the Ohio 2025 Pint Day. Yes, it's not quite the right style to put in this glass, but since I bought it at the same time I got this beer, I thought it seemed appropriate. So pouring it out into the glass, it has a nice fluffy mocha-colored head. It's got a nice piney citrus aroma on the nose. The fact that I really can't see a whole lot of the beer other than the bottom where my hand is, because of the nice, beautiful artwork that shows a lot of Ohio flowers on it. I wouldn't even know this was an IPA, frankly. Alright, so first sip impression. Oh yeah. So, immediately, I'm hit with a nice hop bite. It is just like right there, front and center in your face. Wow, that is so good. In fact, the more that I smell the beer, it really reminds me of fresh hops when I grow them at my own home. And you take them off the vine and you rub them on your fingers and you're smelling them. It just smells so fresh and just so vibrant like that. It is so amazing. But then on the palate, it is a nice, probably medium-bodied mouthfeel. It's got a nice amount of bitterness to it. Earthy, as I think it was described here by the brewer. It just really coats your mouth with just a nice, bitter flavor. Indeed, it is perfect for the hop enthusiast. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I always love beers that make you think. And this is one that makes you think. You think it's going to be a stout, or you think it's going to be an IPA, and all of a sudden you get hit by the aroma, hit by the flavor, and your mind is just blown. That's exactly what I feel here. I think a beer like this is just perfect for a fall day. Honestly, the weather here in the Midwest is starting to cool off. We're approaching that freezing point at night, but still getting into mild temperatures during the day. This would be a great beer to have around the bonfire, have while you're cooking out some burgers maybe, or some hot dogs on that fire. It's a great beer. It really is. It's smooth. I don't really get a whole lot of pushback from it. It really goes down easily. You really would want to be kind of careful with this, being that it is 7%. But overall, I give this one a high 4 tasters out of 5 on the flight board. Cheers, Encore Brewing. I'm always looking for new craft beverages to review, so if you've got one from your favorite local craft brewery, meadery, or cidery you'd like me to drink and describe, reach out and let me know. That's all for this episode of the 5-Beer Plan. With so many podcasts out there, thanks for choosing to listen to mine. Join me next time as I get more expert advice from David at Buckeye Brewcraft, take a little visit to the Hawkeye State, embark on the first steps of the homebrew project, finish my conversation with Paul from Brewery Phase On, and review another beer. Remember to hit the subscribe button on your preferred podcast platform to be notified of new episodes. Follow me on Instagram as well, 5-Beer Plan 2022, to see what is happening on my personal ale trail. I'd love to hear from you, and there are several ways you may do so. Leave a comment for this episode on Spotify, direct message me on Instagram, or email me directly, 5beerplan@frontier.com. Be sure to support your local breweries, choose your beers wisely, and drink them responsibly. Until next time, keep walking your ale trail, and stay thirsty, my friends.